Thank you for checking out our Nerdy Bitz. It is Friday once again, and we are here to talk about our songs of the week. This is Tim the Nerd, and I am joined by the effervescent Professor Aubrey. And yeah, like we mentioned, songs of the week. So how about you let the folks know what your choice is?
All right, so my song of the week is Diamonds and Rust by one Joan Baez. Now, this song I have on vinyl, and it's one of my favorites. I happened to do a project when I was a junior in high school on Joan Baez. You had to pick a famous person, dress up like them, and give an interview like on David Letterman. And so I chose Joan Baez and I did a musical performance. And I really wanted to sing this song, but it was so hard and it was in a key it wasn't good. And so I did a different song. It was actually written by Bob Dylan that Joan Baez sang. That's all to say, I've loved this song since I was in high school. And I'm happy to be able to share it. It is a heartbreaking song about past love and memory and how our memory stays with us and how it leaves us and like what we remember about things. Do you know what the song's about?
Wasn't it about Bob Dylan?
Absolutely. It was about Bob Dylan. It's not really, you don't know why she's remembering this, right? You don't know if she's like, I love him. I want to get back together with him. I don't want to be with him and I'm sad. Like it's all about just remembering what happened between them.
Yeah, I think for the longest time they did have a rather tumultuous relationship, that had some, big time ups and some low time downs. If you talk to her now, I think more than anything, it sounds like she's kind of at peace with any sort of negativity she has had with him, and just kind of sees things more of, hey, we did a lot of great stuff. He's made a lot of great music. I helped inspire him. He helped inspire me. That is a great thing. So it sounds like, she's gotten to the point to where she can see the positives. I don't think she would put herself into a situation to have the negatives happen again, so I don't think I'm going to start dating again or anything like that. But it sounds like she's at peace with their relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I think enough time had passed. So this song came out in 1975 when I was one and you weren't even born yet. This was long after they were romantically involved. They were romantically involved in the 60s when they both first became famous. She was more famous than he was to begin with. And so she sort of introduced him around hootenannies, etc. in New York City. They did festivals together and they were connected. They did tours together. They were deeply connected. None of us know what that means, what that meant to be in that relationship. Like, was it committed? We just don't know anything about it. And this song doesn't really tell us any more than we knew to begin with. It is consistent with how I think Bob Dylan would have been. Like, of course, he's going to be hard to pin down. Of course, he's not going to tell you where he is. He's all the things that she talks about. I'm like, of course, Bob Dylan did that. So if you haven't heard the song, what it's about is remembrance of a relationship. And she gets a call out of the blue from someone she dated a year, 10 years, 15 years ago. Instantly, she's pulled back into the past and her relationship with Bob Dylan. And, we don't even know where he's calling from. It's very abstract. And if you've ever gotten that call, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years after a relationship with someone has ended, and now it's not a call, it's an email, it's a text message, whatever. But when you get that from your former lover, a lot of stuff comes up. Like, even if you've dealt with all the stuff, it's still someone who's so special to you because you had this very important relationship. That doesn't mean it was always good. It just means you were connected. And so she's remembering both the diamonds and the rust, the diamonds being those moments that you spend together, and the rust is the parts that didn't last, So she, when she gets this phone call, she, like many of us, is on one hand remembering the beautiful memories, but on the other hand, also remembering why it didn't work out. That's what the song's about. From a lyrical perspective, it's a very modern take on female-male love. So if you think back to 1975 when this song was written, this is when the Equal Rights Amendment was in the forefront. This is when women were entering the workforce and in larger numbers, and a lot of things were changing for women. And this song represents the recognition that women can have complex emotional lives, and they also can manage their emotions. So basically, what she's acting like here is an adult, right? She's holding two opposite things in her mind at the same time, and that's not making her freak out. She's able to handle it, and she's able to move elegantly through the situation of the phone call. And I think that's really inspiring for, when we look back at it as a modern idea of like, move through it, get to a better place, value what happened, not through a lens of nostalgia, not through a lens of bitterness, through the lens of reality, the messiness of reality. And for that's, I think the song is raw and really captures an emotion that I have felt at times with former lovers of mine. And so I really relate to it. I really relate to it. What do you think of the song?
Well, to be honest, I've not heard Joan Baez's version of it.
Really? You haven't seen Joan Baez? You haven't heard Joan Baez's version of it?
I have not.
Now, you make it sound like there's another version that we should be concerned about.
Well, how about I just dive into my next choice here?
Yeah, why don't you tell us your song of the week?
All right, my song of the week is from one of my favorite bands, Judas Priest.
Nice, nice.
Yes, it is off of their major label. They debut overall, I believe, their third album in total, but their first one on a major label called Sin After Sin, released in 1977.
Wow, look at us, children of the 70s.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
pretty much, yeah. But anyway, it is the second track on that album. It is a cover song. It is called Diamonds and Rust.
Oh my God. Now, I just have finished telling you how very introspective this song is. And I cannot imagine a band like Judas Priest who has no subtlety, no internal process. It's all very loud and in your face. How did this happen?
Well, good question. Rob, I can read a paragraph here of a Rob Halford quote where he talked about why they chose that song. He said, "Well, the simple story is that our label could see that there was a buzz happening here in America, and we were looking for an opportunity to get some kind of radio play. Radio in 1978, when we released that, was a different hybrid. It was before all of the beat things started to happen, and I think the label sensed that we've got something in us and that there was a chance. And I think they thought, well, if we go this route and the radio stations hear that Priest is covering a Joan Baez song, then at least to get you through the door. The big challenge, even now, is to get you through the doors to get you played on the radio. I think the label believed that we could write radio songs, but they probably thought that this would be a little bit of a way to make a possibly slightly faster connection. I don't know. We were actually making the back end of the Sin After Sin sessions when it was suggested to us that we cover this track. And I remember we were all together, and whoever it was came in, whether it was from the label or the management, and said, listen to this song. The label would like you to consider covering it. And when we put it on, all we heard was Joan Baez singing this song with a guitar, and your knee-jerk reaction is, are you fucking crazy? We are a heavy metal band. But again, typical of Priest, we're like, what's the logic behind this? And then after a couple of listens, this is a great song. And a good song will take any kind of interpretation. So it was just a case of, well, we're Priest. And if the label wants us to rock it up, then this is what we're going to try and do. So that's how it came together, and it turned out really well. It opened the door for us in radio in a lot of ways, and I think that for the first time, a metal band was able to get the kind of accessibility. They did it to essentially get noticed. It was, I think, a situation of a metal band covering a Joan Baez song. I have to hear this. But because the reason we did this, folks, is that I actually was curious about Joan Baez's opinion of that particular song, and I actually have it
Oh, nice.
right here. She said, she said, I love that. I was so stunned when I first heard it. I thought it was wonderful. It's very rare for people to cover my songs. I think there are a couple of reasons. One is they're personal. They don't have a universal quality to them. And I think maybe it's because I've already sung them and who wants to compete with that? But it's always flattering when somebody does. And I've been open about the fact on the show that when it comes to Joan Baez's music, I'm not her biggest fan in any way, shape, or form. She's not shedding any tears. Let's put it that way. She's going to be fine. But just because I'm not a fan of her music doesn't mean I don't have respect for her place in music history, especially 20th century popular music.
Mhm.
And the fact that, she embraced Judas Priest. Covering one of her songs, I think, was amazing. And from what I understand, too, like one of her kids, their preferred version of Diamonds and Rust is the Judas Priest version. So,
I mean, just for the title sounds like a metal song, you know?
exactly, exactly. Now, if you listen to the Priest version, it does also sound a little bit disco.
Interesting.
I mean, in 77, obviously, there were a number of bands at that particular time, even rock bands like the Rolling Stones, Kiss, putting out disco rock songs. So it does kind of have that feel as well. But the respect I had for Joan Baez grew when I found out that she enjoyed this cover of that song. Now, having said that, like, do I think she regularly goes to Judas Priest concert and you can find her in a pit throwing down with the other people? No, but as a musician, I think too, because of her folk music history, folk musicians don't just sing the songs; they have to dig. They're also kind of like historians in a way. So I think this is a case of her viewing music in a different way than somebody who just says I prefer folk music or I prefer metal music. She's thinking of it more as a student, a PhD level student, unlike me, but a student nonetheless. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, but I guess I do agree with that, but I don't think it's the thing I would pick out about the similarities and or differences between the Judas Priest version and the Joan Baez one. Let me tell you why. Again, it's a modern idea. What if Joan Baez has actually internalized, processed, and moved through all of the emotions that she had about this relationship? She's holding space for that ambiguity that we talked about earlier. What is Judas Priest doing? Have they done that emotional labor to move through their historic relationship to come out in a better place? It doesn't sound like it, right? It sounds like it's something they're doing today. It's not about something that happened in the past. It's about something that's still happening. It's still who they are. They're still emotional. So I think that's an interesting aspect.
Well, I think another interesting aspect to consider too is the fact that, Rob Halford was the first major heavy metal star to come out as gay.
Well, that's true.
And he was definitely gay in the 70s. He was not out in the 70s at that particular time, but it's even though you talked about this is just a standard, essentially a relationship song or something like that, but I think taking that into account gives you another way, I guess, of looking at the Judas Priest version. Now, I do remember the first time I played the Judas Priest version to you. We were in a car heading home, and the look on your face was like the look that a person would get if they get like a gallon of milk out of the fridge that's been in there for a little too long, and open it up and get a whiff.
Yeah, with it.
Y-
Mhm.
Yeah, you were not
I
a
whipped
fan.
him. I smelled him out.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, but you get
I'm open to listening to it again now that I've really thought about this song and listened to it again after many years.
you won't like it. Let's be honest here, but having said that, I know you will give it the old college try.
Sure.
Yep. Well, anyway, that's our Diamond and Rust episode.
Love it. Love it. I'm going to make you listen to Diamonds and Rust on vinyl right now when we conclude our nerdy bit.
Well, okay. It's Friday, folks. It is the end of the week. Thank you for checking out our Nerdy Bits. You can head to the link in the show description or just head straight to YouTube, look for Friends Talking Nerdy, subscribe to our channel, and you can find this playlist with all of our songs of the week chosen, and you can listen to quite the eclectic mix.
It is a nice mix. I think it's cool.
Quack 2, yes. Well, once again, thank you for checking out our Nerdy Bits, you dirty people. Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy
On YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify,
or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Bye, friends.